Why do so many police candidates get disqualified going through the background process? And how do you prevent that from happening? If you're a candidate that does not want that to happen, this one's for you. Let's discuss. Before we get started, if you're one of those people that says, I do not want to get disqualified, I do not want to have to wait a year to reapply to my dream agency, and I want to make sure I get it right on the first shot so I can get hired on as soon as possible, go ahead and sign up for our Getting Started as a Police Officer workshop right down below. It's a quick workshop that walks you through the hiring process. It covers what we're going to cover today, and it covers a lot more. Additionally, if you're a person that is ready to get into the process and you need some more specific, tailored advice to yourself and your situation, go ahead, sign up for our free coaching call down below. Both of those are free gifts from me to you, and I hope you utilize them and enjoy them. All right, let's get started. The number one reason why you make it to the background process only to be disqualified or dismissed, and that is making a mistake on your police questionnaire. If you make a mistake on your police questionnaire and you're applying to city or I should say local or state, you're going to have to live with that for every application that you put in for any department in that state. It's very rare that they'll wind up being able to pull that application from a different state, but within a state, usually there's a database that you apply to, whether you apply on governmentjobs.com or any other state database or even local municipality database where you submit your police application and your police questionnaire. So let's look at it this way. If you mark on there, let's say you're in Colorado and you mark on there that you've never done an illegal drug or an illegal substance, but you have used marijuana at one point and you used marijuana prior to it being decriminalized or made legal in the state of Colorado. I think I said Colorado earlier. If I didn't, I mean Colorado. So if you're one of the people that fall into that and you mark, well, no, marijuana is legal, and I mark, no, I've never done an illegal substance in my life, then they ask you, well, when was the last time you did marijuana? And you say, oh, I did marijuana 15 years ago. They're going to look at it and say, well, marijuana wasn't legal 15 years ago. You just lied on your official form. You're dismissed or disqualified. And the best thing you can hope in a situation like that is that you get dismissed for failure to fill out paperwork properly. The worst thing that you can have them say is you lack candor, and they say you're lying, and next thing they disqualify you for a year or more. It could be indefinitely. You don't want to fall under that situation. So making sure you fill out your police questionnaire properly the first time. Unfortunately, law enforcement is a career where you don't really get the chance to make a mistake. And what I mean by that is you can obviously make a little mistake as long as you can reasonably articulate it or explain it, or you thought you were making the correct decision at the time. And this is through your entire law enforcement career. But you really, when you're applying, you get one shot to go through. And if you mess up on your first department, that has a potential to follow you to the next department. Not always, and I'm not saying that if you don't get hired on with your first department, you'll never get hired on. That's not the case. I have a buddy that applied to 57 agencies before he finally got hired on. And his reasoning was, it wasn't that he wasn't a good police officer. Now he is a supervisor for federal law enforcement. And he runs, he's their lead firearms instructor. He's a phenomenal officer, great officer, and one of the best guys I've ever worked with. But 57 times he applied. Can you imagine being told no 57 times and the grit he had to keep going, knowing that, hey, I want to get through to serve my community. This is something I want to do. This is my dream profession and my dream career, and I'm going to do it. Now, some of us might not have that commitment, but I guarantee that you do. The problem is that he, with those 56 times before he got picked up with the department, he was messing up on his police questionnaire. He wasn't lying on it or anything like that, but he was messing up. So when When he filled out his police questionnaire and went to his background investigator started asking him questions about things on his police questionnaire. When was the last speeding ticket you got? Oh, I'm not for, I don't remember, or 5 years ago. Well, no, it shows that you got pulled over and you were given a ticket here 2 years ago for driving 7 miles over the speed limit. Oh, well, that was a dismissed. It doesn't matter. They say, when was the last time you were given a ticket? And if you were given a ticket, it doesn't matter if it was dismissed in court. You have to state that on your police questionnaire. And if you don't, and it's discovered, it looks like you're lying or trying to hide something throughout the police hiring process. And your background investigator will catch it and they will put it on there. The best way to handle it is to be able to, when you write it out, articulate it properly. And that's where you need to practice before you submit your police questionnaire. You need to practice and you need to make sure you're filling it out correctly, because as soon as you submit it, you cannot take it back, especially if it's digital. Once it's digital and it's out there, it's one thing. The best thing you could hope for is that you mess up on a police questionnaire that's written and you turn it in when you go for your written test or your physical test, and they just keep a hard copy of it and they don't digitize it. That's the best thing you can hope for if you wind up messing up on one. But the goal here is to not mess up to begin with. So let's use another scenario here. We go into the situation where, have you ever applied to another police department? And if you mark no to that, but then you remember down the line, hey, I applied to a police department as soon as I turned 21, before I was even out of college, to try and get into law enforcement. Because a little inside tip, if you take a coaching call with us, we can teach you how to get your degree for free through law enforcement. As soon as you become a commissioned law enforcement officer, we can show you how to get both your associates or your bachelor's for free. Anyway, I digress. Different topic for a different time. But you go through and say, hey, I've never applied to another police department. But you did. You applied when you were 21, as soon as you turned 21, and you were legally allowed to apply before you even finish your degree if you were in college. And you know what? You withdrew yourself right after the application, or you didn't respond to the information for a written exam or a physical exam, and you were just removed from the process. And you're thinking to yourself, well, I didn't really apply. I submitted an application, but I didn't go through the process. That doesn't matter. You applied, and what it's going to show on their system when they contact them, especially if they're in the same state, it's going to show that you were dismissed from the hiring process, which is never a good thing, especially if there's no context behind it. So why were you dismissed? Failure to follow directions, didn't pass the background process, didn't submit the proper paperwork. All these things can add up and really hurt you. The number one thing, as I said, that gets you jammed up, and this usually comes out in your background investigation, is improperly filling out your police questionnaire. Because if you have things that do not add up over here on your police questionnaire to the information your background investigator's finding over here, they're going to question you about it. And if you can't reasonably articulate it right then and there on the spot, you're just going to get moved to the dismiss pile, no matter how bad departments need officers right now. They're not just going to pick any officer that's going to get them jammed up later on down the line, or I should say any candidate that gets them jammed up later on down the line with any type of legal issues, especially with the way things are going right now. They still want qualified applicants that can fill out their paperwork and do all the steps they need to properly. That is your first job as a police officer, is when you're a police candidate, is getting the documentation properly and together and submitting it to them so that they have everything they need to make your hiring process as streamlined as possible. So other things you can do is, and you may have heard me say this in other videos, is getting your proper documentation together in order. Making a mistake where you've worked, leaving out, and that's another one, leaving out a past employer. We're saying, hey, have you ever been relieved or fired from employment? Well, they told me that they were going to let me go and I just quit. So no, I've never been fired. But there's usually a question in there that says, have you ever quit knowing that you may be terminated? And if you just mark no to that, you say, no, well, it wasn't 100% sure, That's not going to fly if they contact that employer and they say, hey, we're calling about so and so's reference. Yeah, so and so resigned prior to termination. They're going to look at you like you're lying, and they're not going to give you a second chance to explain something like that. So you need to get it right on the first shot. And you can do that, one, by going through the workshop, or two, by reaching out to us. We'll guide you through the process if you have any questions that are specific to your police questionnaire, and past that if you need additional help. But you need to make sure you get it right the first time. If you don't, you're going to wind up regretting it, and it's going to come back to really hurt you in the process, especially if you're applying to your dream agency on the first shot. If you're applying to your dream agency on the first shot and you've never filled out a police questionnaire before, you need to get some advice on it, and you need to walk through the process properly, because that's not the agency you want to make a mistake in. Listen, those gifts are down below for you. The Getting Started as a Police Officer workshop, it's going to walk you through each part of the hiring process and give you an inside tip to what you need to know and how you need to proceed forward. But if you need more specific, tailored advice to your situation, go ahead, reach out to a coaching call with myself. I'd be happy to help you. It's what I enjoy and love doing. So both of those gifts are down below in the description. Click on whichever one you want. Click on both of them. I look forward to seeing you and talking to you a little bit further. As always, stay safe.